everybody grab a seat and we'll get started. Thanks for being here. We are in our September City of Franklin Planning Commission meeting. We appreciate everybody being here. We will start with our minutes from the August meeting. Moved and seconded. Did you get those? Scott moved and Michael seconded. All right, any comments on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if there's items that are not on tonight's agenda and you still want to speak to the commission, please come forward. If not, we'll move on. All right, thank you. Then we'll move on to...
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry. This is an item that's not on the agenda tonight? I'm sorry. Is this an item not on tonight's agenda? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. I want to give one to...
Can I get one, please? For the record? Okay, we need one for the record, please.
All right, if you will let us know your name, where you live, and we'll get started.
My name is Wayne Cleveland. I live in Riser Point in Franklin, Tennessee. I've lived there for 4 years. We have some problems that I would like to address with you tonight. And if you would, just look at the front page. And this is more like a date schedule of what we've done with the city. So all I'm asking you to do is go to the letter to Dr. Moore. On March the 8th, we discussed problems in Riser Point with he and Mr. Girth. And if you would, just go to the first page and you can see that on April the 27th, we got a notice from the Homeowners Association that all sidewalks were complete in Riser Point. If you go to the next one, it's May the 24th. You can see that Goodall Homes applied for all sidewalks to be released because they were in performance. If you will notice, all of them were denied. And if you go to picture A, you will see that this is at the corner of Del Rio Pike and Reese Drive. This was a walkway that went to Poplar Grove School from our community. And during that time of construction, Goodall never completed this particular sidewalk. The only reason this got completed was the fact that a little boy almost got ran over in the street going to school at Del Rio Pike. And a lady, not even from our neighborhood, got involved and got this particular intersection taken care of. Directly across the street, there was supposed to be another paved sidewalk just like this. It took them almost 2 months after that to get that paved, and then they left the forms there for 3 months. Kids couldn't get up and go across the sidewalk, across Del Rio Pike to go to school. So I personally had to go and take the forms down so that the kids could use that sidewalk. Then they say they're through with the sidewalks. If you look at picture C, this shows a drainage situation where it's being blocked by the sidewalk. There needs to be a cut in the sidewalk so this particular parking area will release the water. And of course, this week we've had rain, and guess what? It's full again. And if you'll go to picture D, you will see that they said this is complete. As you notice, there's several pads of concrete to be done there. We understand why this is not being done because they have some other construction going on. Also, if you'll notice picture E, they said this particular sidewalk is completed. And if you'll notice in picture E, it has not been completed, and there is construction going on there. And once again, they're saying it's complete. So we need your help, and I'll tell you what we need in just a minute. If you will go to this particular picture, which shows Riser Point 5 and 6. Goodall is in the process of adding 16 homes to our subdivision. As you notice with the green road on the picture, there is an access in and there's an emergency access out. The homeowners that are buying in there, that are in the process of buying homes, are told that there's going to be a 20-foot emergency access and pedestrian easement. Now, we have 94 homes in our subdivision, and we have 2 exits in and out of the subdivision. Can you tell me why 16 homes needs 3 exits out of a subdivision? I don't see the reasoning, and I don't see why they need this. And I think the homeowners are going to be paying for this rather than the city of Franklin. So I have concerns there. So the action that I would like for you to help us with is very simple. It's on the last page, and if you would look at it, it has 1, 2, 3, and 4. Ms. Peterson has been very nice in helping us getting things done, but we do have some problems, and I'm asking you, as soon as I find that sheet, Ms. Peterson, have over your sheet. This is a request. We met Mr. Girth on several occasions, and we expected him to help us on this. And we met with him last year, and we've met with him twice this year. And we've basically got nothing taken care of. And just in the last month, they've started working our subdivision again. As I said, we've lived there 4 years. We've lived with a lot of this that you see, and it's getting very aggravating. So what I'm asking you to do is, I gave Mrs. Peterson several copies of documents, and she's been looking at them for the last week. I would like for y'all to have all of those documents before the next meeting. And Mr. Girth has a copy of all of those, and he can get them to you, I'm sure, in the next week. The second thing I'm asking is, Mr. Hathaway, would you please give me a call, or I'll give you a call, and ride through the neighborhood with me, just to look. That's all I'm asking. Is there a problem? I know you can't go as a group. And the third thing is we're asking you not to release any bonds on Riser Point until an inspection is done by somebody in the city that has the authority to get things done. Because we have so many issues, it takes too much time here tonight to explain them all. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer any of your questions, but I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, any other citizen comments? All right, I don't think I see any, so we will move on. Staff announcements?
We do have one announcement, and that is that October is National Community Planning Month. It's our favorite time of year. So at the October 9th BOMA meeting, the mayor will be issuing a proclamation declaring it so as National Community Planning Month. And I'd like to invite all the Planning Commission to join us if you're available or wish to attend on October 9th at 7 p.m. for the reading of the proclamation. We appreciate all you do, and we'd love to have you there. And then lastly, in lieu of special planning activities for this year, for National Community Planning Month, I want to request that everyone participate, if you're available, in the On the Table initiative on October 30th to engage in dialogue about our community on a variety of different topics. And if you need more information on that, you can go to www.franklintomorrow.org/onthetable for more details, or just come ask myself or any of staff, and we'll get you in touch with someone, or we'll try to answer your questions as best we can. This is an initiative by Franklin Tomorrow, but it's very related to how our community engages in dialogue and deals with the growth of our community and upcoming and foreseeable issues as well as exciting opportunities. So I think it's a really good planning-related activity. So that's what we're going to focus on this October.
Great. If there's fried chicken there, I'm there.
Noted.
Okay. Anyone want to add items to the agenda that is not currently on agenda? All right, I see none, then we will vote on our consent agenda. These are items that are considered non-controversial that we'll vote on all together. We have two consent agendas. One is initial and one is our secondary. So we'll start with initial consent. Items 2 through 5 and 8 through 9 are on our initial consent. So is there anyone in the audience, staff, or commission that would like to pull those items off consent so that we can discuss those? Otherwise, we'll be voting on those all in one. All right, then I'll assume that means no, so I will consider a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded for approval of the consent agenda, the initial consent agenda as presented. Any comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. The secondary consent item, I'm going to pass the floor over to Roger, and I will recuse myself for that vote.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secondary consent, Chairman Hathaway has recused himself from that item. So that's item number 10, an item for the River Bluff PUD subdivision. Is there a motion to approve?
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll turn the floor back over to Chairman Hathaway.
Thank you, Roger. All right, before we get started, I wanted to lay some ground rules for our discussion. It's great seeing everybody out here, and I appreciate you guys being here, but we want to make sure that we run a very respectful meeting tonight so we can make our judgments in an appropriate way. So I want to start by saying here's how it's going to go. I will read each item as it comes up, so you'll hear what that item is that we're going to be discussing. We will then follow that with staff making comments. So if you'll listen closely, you'll hear what staff has to say about each item. And they'll give their recommendation on how they would recommend our action to take. At that point, then I'm going to ask for citizen comments. And that's where you guys, if you have a desire to come forward, then we'll open the floor for that. When we have the Envision Franklin discussion, that'll be a public hearing, and we'll note it as such. But otherwise, each item will have a public comment section. And if you want to come forward, please do in an orderly fashion. Just come up to the podium and line up that way so we can be efficient with our time. I will offer each one 2 minutes to speak. And you see the big clock over here on Vanna's right side, left side. So that is a 2-minute clock, and when it gets to the end, does it make a noise? There you go. So very subtle, but we'll ask you to keep your comments 2 minutes or less. And if when you're talking, or when you're standing in line, you hear somebody else making the comment you wanted to make, you're welcome to say it again, but as they say in the South, don't beat a dead horse. When we hear it, we'll understand the comment, and you know, if folks come up and say it 20 times, eventually we're going to kind of go tone deaf. But please consider that as well. And when you're making your comments, we're up here doing the best job we can. So please don't make disparaging remarks to us as if we're not intelligent folks. We're making decisions based on what we think that are the best kind of decisions for the city. And also, please don't make disparaging comments about others who have spoken already. Also, I would prefer that no mass applause or boos come out of the audience because, again, we can't hear the discussion going on. So please keep your comments to yourself. We do have an officer here today, and I don't want to use his services at all, but we will if it gets rowdy and we need to. We'll take care of that. So above all, let's just be nice as they say in the county school system. So, with that said, let's get started with the first item, which is number 6. Consideration of ordinance 2018-50, an ordinance to rezone 19.83 acres from General Commercial District, GC, to specific development variety, SDX 16.79, for the property located north of Liberty Pike and west of Carruthers Parkway. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This ordinance accompanies a PUD development plan, Resolution 2018-81, which is the next item on the agenda. Both are being considered and are tied together for this rezoning. Envision Franklin places this parcel in a regional commerce design concept. Envision Franklin supports commercial, office, and multifamily residential in a mixed-use setting, where new multifamily residential uses incorporate activated ground floor spaces. Staff has found that the rezoning and development plan are consistent with Envision Franklin. Therefore, staff recommends approval to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
All right, thank you. Okay, here's the opportunity. If you want to speak to this item, if you'll come forward to the podium and let us know your name, where you live, and keep your comments to 2 minutes or less, then we will open the floor for comments. All right, that was easy. So I will close the comment section and ask for someone representing the applicant. And by the way, by the way, I didn't mention that once we've closed comments, we don't open that again. So please don't raise your hand and say, I'd like to respond to something that was said by the applicant. The comment section is closed at that point, and then we'll deliberate. So,
hello, my name is Greg Gamble, and I know that there are 2 votes on this development plan tonight. The first, the rezoning; the second is the development plan. And if it's okay with the commissioners, I would like to go ahead and have a couple of comments now that relate to really both the rezoning and the development plan. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. I have a couple of handouts I'd like to pass down, if you don't mind. This is really not new information, but it is some clarification. Some of the planning commissioners and aldermen at the Joint Conceptual Workshop asked if we could provide some 3D view of what this is going to look like. So in the 11 by 17s, you'll see that there's a color plan that'll give some context and some reference to the block across the street. But in the following pages, there are also some perspective renderings. First, I'd like to comment on something that was said at the Joint Conceptual Workshop. The John Henry Carruthers house is still standing. It has not been torn down. Yeah. John Henry Carruthers house is on the property that's just to the north of this and faces Huffines Ridge, so it is still standing. First, to hit a couple of highlights that we discussed at the Joint Conceptual Workshop. This property is on the growth corridor of Carruthers Parkway. It's the jobs corridor. It is also a property that at just over 19 and a half acres is part of a much bigger master plan. So in Envision Franklin, it's encouraged to have a mix of residential and commercial on the property. Taller structures are to be closer to I-65. And on this particular property, a total height of 6 stories is permitted. We're not proposing 6 stories on this height today, but just to remind you of kind of the context of what Envision Franklin said about the plan. We are proposing a rezoning of the property from general commercial to special development variety. In special development variety, you can have that mix of uses, both multifamily or both residential and commercial uses. We're proposing a total of 67,330 square feet of non-residential. That's going to include office, retail, and restaurants. We will included in our master plan is 332 multifamily units. At street level of the multifamily units will be live-work apartments. So you'll be able to have certain office, retail opportunities there on the ground level. There will be on-street parking for convenient access to that live-work. We have 5 stories that face Carruthers Parkway, and we have 4 stories that face Huffines Ridge. So instead of having retaining walls across the site, we're using that architecture to be that retaining wall and transition the grades on the property. To remind you a little bit of the demographics in Franklin, currently we have about 10,000 people in Franklin that live in Franklin and work in Franklin. We have about 22,000 that work somewhere else and commute. We have approximately, or just over 60,000 jobs in Franklin right now, and 50,000 people commute into Franklin every day from somewhere else. And a lot of that is driven by the economics of living in Franklin. Just last month, the average home price was $587,000. The median home price was around $500,000. To be an owner in Franklin, in one of these average price points, you need to have an income roughly around $150,000 to $160,000 combined. For a typical apartment in Franklin, for a 1-bedroom, it rents at $1,400 a month. A renter needs an income of $50,000. So this apartment, the apartments that are in Cool Springs, when they're integrated into the commercial, when they're integrated into office areas, it shortens commuter time. They're affordable. It is our big component of our workforce in Franklin and will reduce trips on I-65. And developments pay for themselves. The 332 apartments will contribute $1.7 million to roadway impact fees. The commercial, the 67,000 square feet of commercial, will contribute around $700,000 to our roadway impact fees. This development total will have $2.4 million that it will contribute to arterial and collector roads here in Franklin. The apartments will contribute $1,071,000 in parkland dedication fees. And as we talked in the workshop, surprisingly, we're seeing a very low number of students in apartment complexes today. We anticipate, based upon the what we're seeing and reported from Williamson County, that 332 apartments will generate between 3 and 4 students. The school impact fee payment that's paid to Williamson County for 332 apartments is $938,000. So that is the new new school impact fee that's paid by this apartment complex. So in this instance, development is paying for development. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Representatives from South Star are here tonight. Representative from Embry is here tonight, and Ryan McMaster with Kimley Horn is here in case you have any questions regarding traffic or the traffic study. Thank you.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion. This is to rezone the acreage. So
Motion approved.
okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We'll move to item number 7, which is ordinance, consideration of resolution 2018-81, a resolution approving a development plan for Carruthers Crossing West PUD subdivision. Staff?
Thank you, Mr.
Josh?
Chairman. This is the resolution approving the PUD development plan for the rezoning that was the previous item. Envision Franklin places this area in regional commerce. There's relevant passages from Envision Franklin in your staff reports that I will not read verbatim for you.
Thank you.
Envision Franklin places a strong emphasis on building placement. This proposed development utilizes an internal street with minimal setbacks for the attached residential live-work units and apartments. The change in grade between the finished floor elevations of these buildings prevented the retail buildings from fully lining the street with storefronts. The office and retail buildings have a setback on Carruthers Parkway consistent with the retail buildings on the east side of Carruthers Parkway. New multifamily residential is encouraged within regional commerce to create lively, walkable neighborhoods near restaurants, shops, grocery stores, and workplaces. First floors are encouraged to have active commercial spaces, including retail, restaurant, leasing offices, and other amenities which should be individually accessible from the street. Multifamily buildings are encouraged to have urban form and be part of a connected and master planned site. The applicant uses a mix of live-work units to create a walkable community with pedestrian and bicycle connections to potential retail, restaurants, and office space. Each unit fronting the internal roadway is designed to have individual entrances and a parking space in front of each unit. The live-work units are intended to transition to a mix of light commercial uses over time as the market allows. The entire proposed development is illustrating pedestrian, bicycle, potential future transit options, and vehicular connections into other existing and proposed developments spanning north of McEwen Drive, south to Murfreesboro Road, and as far to the east as Columbia State Community College campus. Therefore, staff recommends the item favorably to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in the audience want to speak to this item? All right, I see none. Someone's representing the applicant?
Yes, my name is Greg Gamble, representing the applicant. About a week and a half ago, we presented this development plan to the Historic Zoning Commission. We're adjacent to the John Henry Carruthers house, and we have received unanimous recommendation of support, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now this is a resolution to approve the development plan. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I had a couple of questions
Go
for
ahead.
the applicant.
Please.
The John Henry Carruthers house, is that going to be preserved?
It's not on here.
Oh, okay. It's not-
So the John Henry Carruthers house is
It's
on the
not part
property to
of
the
this.
north.
Okay.
It's not a part of this development
Okay.
plan. I know that the property is under contract, and the entity that has it under contract would like to see it preserved.
Okay. The other question, you said 3 to 4 students for 332 units?
Correct.
Wow.
Um,
So what are
I
the price?
called-
Go
Mhm.
ahead.
I called, it was a surprising number to me as well, but called Williamson County Schools and received information from them just last month. Artesa, that has 250 apartments, they have a total of 4 reported students there.
Okay.
The Emblem, which has a total of 363 apartments, has a total of 3 students. Cameron at Franklin Park, which has a total of 302 apartments, they have a total of 1 reported student. So what we're seeing is that these apartments that have a low number of 3-bedroom apartments that are really focusing more on just the 1 and 2 bedrooms, which this does. There are no 3 bedrooms that are being
Okay.
proposed here. Really are drawing in a lot more young professionals
Okay.
or older residents in Franklin.
Okay, thank you. And what are
You're-
the price points, as far as you know at this point?
The,
I mean,
as to what the rental rates?
Yeah,
Yeah, so the 1-bedrooms will average around $1,400 a month. The 2-bedroom would be about $1,800 a month.
okay, so that's market. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other comments? Lisa?
Yeah, I have a question. Could you speak to the traffic study? And I believe there's a light going in at the one intersection up here, but is there a, and I guess this is a right in and right out here in the middle, and then,
I'm gonna pass it over to Ryan McMaster, who's gonna answer that question for me, and I'll hold the word for you, Ryan.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Lisa, can you repeat your
yeah,
question?
I was just asking about the traffic study and about lights and, you know, the right in and right out.
So there is a light here at South Star Drive. So as part of our project, we will have to amend the cycles within that light. Our right in, right out here at the midpoint is just a right in, right out. You will not be able to access Carruthers headed north. And then our third access point down at Edward Curd and Liberty, we did run a warrant analysis on that, and it is not warranted. And we also have some spacing issues between Edward Curd and Carruthers that staff would not recommend a light at that location.
And you don't think there's that curve, there's a sight issue if people are trying to turn left out of that?
There is, and our traffic report recommended a right out only. So in, you would have full access, and exiting would be right out only. We did receive some comments back from the third-party reviewer recommending further study of that site distance in the hopes of making this a full access. So we're working through that now with staff.
Just along those lines, I noticed there's the old Edward Kerr Lane on there. It's not on this property, but it's right next to it.
Yeah.
And we are proposing a connection there to that. Not sure what the city plans on with the old Edward Kerr right away. It may be deemed excess property. I'm not sure.
All right, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, then we're voting on the recommendation to Board of Aldermen for a development plan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, let's move on to item number 11, which is part of the Envision Franklin Plan Amendments. This is Resolution 2018-45, to be entitled a resolution to adopt an Envision Franklin Plan Amendment for the property located at 4114 Murfreesboro Road to change the design concept from single-family residential to multifamily residential. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendment request is for the property located at 4114 Murfreesboro Road. The property totals 15.82 acres. Envision Franklin has identified single-family residential as a design concept for this site. The applicant is requesting a change in design concept from single-family residential to multifamily. The applicant has stated that the multifamily use will be for an age-restricted residential product. Significant changes have not occurred since the adoption of Envision Franklin that would necessitate the proposed amendment. The continuation of multifamily residential eastward along Murfreesboro Road is not supported by Envision Franklin or staff, as it does not reflect the character of that area or meet the intent of Envision Franklin. There are also project considerations from the engineering and fire department. And staff has received 4 total letters from citizens, 2 in support and 2 in opposition. And staff recommends disapproval.
All right, thank you. All right, I will now open the public hearing. So if anybody wants to speak to this item, if you'll come up to the podium and go ahead and line up, and if you'll, when you're here, if you'll state your name, where you live, your address, and keep your comments to 2 minutes or less, we would appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is D'Amica Church. I live at 304 Terry Parkway. I live there with my husband and our 2 children, 2-year-old little girl and 5-year-old little boy. We very strongly oppose this amendment. You're going to hear several reasons from other folks about traffic issues, bus stops, those sort of things, and I agree with those. But what I really want to highlight is the actual Envision Franklin plan itself. My understanding and my review is that Cameron General Contractors has to show certain criteria to come through and amend Envision Franklin. And Envision Franklin was put in after much public debate, meetings, input, and that sort of thing. Based upon my understanding and review, there are 2 main things that jump out to me. First of all, the description of how conditions have changed, thereby making an amendment valid. My husband and I have lived in this home since 2012. Envision Franklin was adopted in 2017. There's been no change, ladies and gentlemen, that would justify this happening. Secondly, I would like to point out a description of how the proposed amendment will be compatible with the existing land use patterns and design concepts of nearby property. My home, my husband's home, is probably the closest Hirschborn Park home to this proposed development. And Terry Parkway, the street I live on, is a very steep downhill. I strongly believe if this goes through and this development occurs, this will massively overshadow not only my home, but all of my neighbors' homes in Terry Parkway, as well as neighbors that surround the property not in my neighborhood. So I would beg you all to strongly consider denying this, and I appreciate your time and attention to this matter.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Elisa Napier. I live at 212 Terry Parkway in Hurstbourne Park. My home is adjacent to Jonathan Jeffers' property, which was 4114 Murfreesboro Road. I'm strongly opposed to the rezoning of this property. I created a petition on change.org, and 220 of my neighbors signed the petition in opposition of the rezoning. We want it to remain single-family residential, not multifamily or commercial. If rezoned, we will have a significant decrease in the marketability of our homes. This would result in a lower sales price if we wanted to sell in the future. Currently, there are no senior living regulations in Franklin. Cameron General Contractors requires that 80% of their residents be over 55, but 20% can be any age. They also offer up to 3-bedroom units, and they rent month to month, which leads to transient renters. There will be increased traffic, deliveries, noise, and a 3-story gabled huge complex on a hill, which will be an eyesore. We also fear a through street where our bus stop is that would connect the two areas. This would be very dangerous for our children and our residents, and I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matt Napier, and I also live at 212 Terry Parkway, so my property joins the existing nursery. Some of the topics that I wanted to speak on have already been addressed, so I'll address not only the property value of the homes butting up against this, but also the fear that this rezoning is going to only beget more rezoning, because as the fountains already exist there, this would lead to, you know, a swath of 96 there that no future developer of residential homes is going to want to touch, at least not a developer that's building homes that cost as much as mine did. That concerns me greatly. And if we continue down this path, we're going to wind up in a situation where, you know, Franklin's going to become a place where you want to rent an apartment, get your kids through school, and get out as fast as you can, because buying a home is going to be too risky. And with that, I'll say thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rob Corley. I live at 214 Terry Park Way. My wife Alicia's in the audience. We have 2 daughters. I live on the corner of Terry Park and Lands End. It's one of the closest plots to the arrow that points to the proposed multifamily apartment complex. We would be looking directly at a 3-story apartment complex on the hill above us, which would probably appear as a 5-story apartment complex from our view. My yard is where 30 kids congregate every morning to catch a bus. And it's also the corner of where a street would cut through if you guys build out a street connecting to this property. I'm opposed to this. I don't think it's the right thing to do. We have a very intense number of kids in our neighborhood that play along that street. We're already concerned every day with Amazon trucks flying through, with post office trucks flying through delivering packages. Can't even imagine what it's like if we were to open this space up and have delivery trucks for a large cafeteria, janitorial service trucks, garbage trucks coming through the backside of our property to service the backside of this property apartment complex. So I appreciate your time and hope that you guys make the right decision on this property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Harper. My family and I have lived on our horse farm at 160 and 164 Chester Stevens Road for the past 16 years. Our farm adjoins Tennessee Nursery and Landscape at the north, the 2 properties, the north there, and then the fountains are to our west. And the 15 acres proposed for multifamily residential are actually a combination of 3 long-standing residential estate R1 zone properties, although the middle one was rezoned about a little over 4 years ago at the request of the new owner in order to bring the nursery business back into compliance with when the residence was tore down. We respectfully request that you follow the staff's recommendation to not approve this amendment, given it would negatively impact the desirability and marketability of our property, as well as impact our peace and enjoyment of our property. The massive structure would essentially tower over our property due to the significant elevation. Our house actually sits at the bottom of a steep hill, which would be approximately 600 feet between my porch and the proposed structure. None of the plans that have been shared by Cameron General even include my actual home as point of reference, nor do they indicate adequate landscape buffer would even be added. When I asked Cameron General representative if evergreens would be added, he stated that other neighbors may prefer the visibility of this building. All the existing trees are deciduous and do not provide adequate screening or even any screening from various viewpoints from our property. We have already suffered the impact of the Fountains Retirement Community adjoining us to the west, and adding yet another retirement community apartment complex adjacent to our property to the south would have an even greater negative impact. We already experience multiple fire engine ambulance sirens on a weekly, if not daily basis, and fear the frequency would further increase. Cameron General told me the city requested that they put a road dead-ending up to my property as an alternate entrance for the future connectivity. I will not sell my property if approached. Thank you for your time, consideration, and service.
Thank you.
Hi, Kevin Berg, 115 Lanes End Drive in Hurstbourne as well. I think everyone's kind of covered a lot of the points tonight, so I'll just concur with that. I appreciate your negative vote tonight.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay, I see none, then we will declare the public hearing closed. I'll open it up to someone representing the applicant.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dwight Kaiser, representing Cameron General Contractors. You have to appreciate the passion of our citizens. It's good to see people come out, and I appreciate their tenacity. It seems like I always draw the easy ones. As I've noted in the past, we're requesting your support for a land use plan amendment for this 15.8 acre tract of land from single-family residential to the multifamily design concept. We feel the reasoning behind the request is sound and appropriate and in keeping with Envision Franklin's intent of strengthening the city and creating exceptional places for our residents. As previously presented, the genesis of our request is for a proposed senior housing development. Specifically, my client seeks the future ability to build, own, and manage a 130 dwelling unit independent senior living facility. As defined by Envision Franklin, the land use plan we propose is residential. However, because of the building form, we're forced into a multifamily use or building form and therefore seek this amendment. Nationally, our senior population represents the fastest growing segment of our society. In 2014, the number of people aged 65 and older in the U.S. accounted for 14.5% of our total population. With 10,000 baby boomers, turning 65 every day, our senior population is estimated to equal 19% of our total population by year 2030. As a comparison, the U.S. Census Bureau estimated Franklin's total population in 2017 at a little over 78,000 people. And of that population, 11.7% or 9,200 of our citizens qualified as seniors 65 years and older. These facts indicate a quickly growing segment of our society These facts indicate a quickly growing segment of our society, and with that growth, a clear need for appropriate senior housing options. There's a common term in senior housing and care called continuum of care, which refers to the increasing intensity of healthcare services and which correlates to the specific housing needs that a senior may need as they age. If you envision a linear spectrum, at the beginning of independent living, and that's defined as a person who is more or less self-sufficient and able to live safely on their own with occasional assistance for daily activities such as housekeeping, household maintenance, things of that nature. This is the type of housing community that would be proposed for this development, assuming support for an amendment. Next in that spectrum of continuum of care, we have personal care, then assisted living, and then memory care. All of these are settings that have folks that obviously need daily activities, support such as bathing and dressing, or they may have age-related memory issues or conditions such as Alzheimer's disease. On the far right of that spectrum is called skilled care, and that's for folks who have major health issues and no longer are able to care for themselves. I describe these settings to highlight the fact that there exist in our country and our city numerous and varying housing needs for our senior population. Yet our city's guiding planning documents, Envision Franklin and the zoning ordinance, only recognizes one, and that is assisted living. Because the typical housing arrangement of most senior facilities is attached rooms or units out of necessity due to the physical and mental needs of the residents, these housing communities almost always fall into the multifamily classification, and therefore all too often carry the stigma the term apartment typically elicits. As noted, our site is located on Highway 96 East, a major arterial carrying roughly 26,000 cars per day. These counts will most likely continue to grow with the forthcoming expansion to 4 lanes of the 5.6-mile segment to the west. It's a significant road with significant traffic volumes. Single-family residential will continue to erode back, in my opinion, and appropriately, based on the volumes of traffic that will continue to grow. Perhaps as support of this fact, Envision Franklin does recognize the area for more intensive uses by calling for the future development of neighborhood commercial for an 8.4 acre area directly across the highway from our site. It's indicated on the plan in the lower left. And lastly, to highlight the ongoing growth and transition of the area, as was mentioned before, I draw your attention to our neighbor to the west, the Fountains, which is a 13.5 acre assisted living and memory care facility. This parcel is designated as a multifamily design concept, and it's the same designation that we seek tonight. As you know, this amendment request is not supported by staff, primarily because not enough change has occurred since adoption of Envision Franklin. I'm not sure how you define not enough change, but I do submit that change occurs in our growing community, and change is inevitable to accommodate our growing needs. Services, housing opportunities, work opportunities, recreational opportunities, all of these are hallmarks that make Franklin great. But they also need change through growth to accommodate the increasing demand that comes with our success. My client did not start the process by seeking to be here tonight to request this amendment. What they did do was locate a site, a good site in our opinion, one that was within a reasonable budget, with a residential section or neighborhood of within a residential section or neighborhood of our city with documented demand, with good access to and from services, and of a size that would comfortably fit a proven program. Neighborhood is a key element in senior housing conversation because statistically, we know that upwards of 75% of the future residents of independent living communities relocate from residential settings within a 5 to 8 mile radius of their location. What that says to me is we as a community should seek to create more opportunity to locate senior housing where it is most needed, and that is near homes or neighborhoods where the residents are often forced to leave behind due to their aging. In many cases, these residents could be our parents.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You have about 2 minutes left as the applicant. I just wanted to give you a heads up.
I'm wrapping it up. In many cases, these residents could be our parents, mom and dad, same people that yesterday were our neighbor, perhaps lived down the road or worked at the local store. They did not choose to grow old and out of necessity leave their home, but it happens, and it will happen to all of us. This development can be a positive addition to our community in an area relevant to the needs of its future residents and on a site appropriate for the use. But to be clear, we are not seeking site plan approval tonight, simply the opportunity to come back before this commission to prove our intent with a PUD development plan. I hope you all concur. I respectfully request your support in this amendment request, and I would be happy to answer questions if I can.
All right, thank you. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, notice.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'd like the applicant to speak on the average age of the occupants of this proposed development, and are they drivers, or will they have cars there?
The average age of residents in the resort lifestyle communities is typically 80 to 83 years old. Anywhere from, depends on the community. I think they tend to drive more out in Las Vegas, but on the East Coast, typically 40 to 60% in that range do not drive.
All right, any other questions? Go ahead, Roger.
Question for the applicant. During the presentation at the work session, we talked a little bit about the remaining parcels along 96 that
Yes, sir.
would be left, essentially left behind, a couple of kind of straggling residential parcels that are kind of just left. Is that something that y'all can address for us?
I can tell you what's currently going on, and I'll, if I can point. To the west, immediately to the west of us is a residential parcel owned by Mr. and Mrs. Hawkins, which is this piece right here. First of all, there is a major gas transmission line, as you all may know, that comes directly across Murfreesboro Road heading north. Roughly 250 feet wide, I believe, somewhere in that range. It impacts both of these homes.
It goes between the homes, doesn't it?
It goes between the homes, but it is on the property, the best I can tell. My client has had discussions with Mr. and Mrs. Hawkins. They set a price for their property. He has offered to pay that price, and they are, last time I heard, in consideration of that offer.
And that's the
We have
parcel on
not
the east
pursued
side?
anything on the other side of the gas transmission line, which would be adjacent actually to the fountains. It is a larger parcel. The Hawkins parcel is fairly shallow in width, but very deep, obviously.
All right, any other questions? All right, it looks like not.
Yeah, I do
Oh,
have
go
a
ahead,
question.
Marcia.
If this fails, are you gonna come back and ask us why we voted no? So do I need to tell you now? Okay, well, no, no comment.
Okay, so again, this is a recommendation to BOMA that we're voting on, and so
No,
far the,
Mr. Chairman, that's not correct.
No.
This is
No,
an
it's not.
Envision Franklin
oh,
amendment.
I'm sorry,
It
you are
ends at
correct.
your
That's right.
decision tonight.
Sorry, thank you. So this is a final decision to modify Envision Franklin. So the motion currently is to approve of the change to,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, sir.
Ms. Peterson.
In this case, if we voted no, we do not have to give a reason. In other words, this is not.
If this isn't a plat, that's correct.
Exactly.
But if, you know, and a motion to approve, I think, you know, you're fine. But if it were the reverse, if it were a motion to disapprove,
You would not need to give
you would not
reasons.
need to, but it would be beneficial.
I've got a question.
Please.
I see a single point of entrance, ingress and egress from this project. There's only one way in, one way out.
On the concept site plan?
Yes.
Obviously, there's a lot of detail yet to be worked out, should we have that ability to do that. There was some very initial discussion with city in terms of engineering feedback on where they would want to see roads and perhaps connectivity to adjacent public streets. The concept plan was to give an indication of how this particular building could fit to the site, how we could buffer and stay off of, in the case of the Hurstbourne Park, a minimum of 225 feet or more, depending on the location of the adjacent properties. And be a good neighbor, provide good buffers, create, as I recall, over 60% open space, particularly to the rear where we do not propose to do anything. As far as accessibility, these are typically one way in and one way out, Chairman Harrison. But obviously, if we can get the opportunity to work with city staff, then we will work with them and heed their advice as we can.
All right, any other comments before we vote? Okay, let's do a hand vote for this one. If you're in favor of the motion as presented, raise your hand. Okay, 3 votes yay and no. Raise your hand. All right, motion fails.
Thank you.
We'll move to item number 12. Consideration of Resolution 2018-48, a resolution to adopt an Envision Franklin Plan Amendment for properties located at and near 1777 New Highway 96 West.
I'm going to give just a minute.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll make your way out quickly and quietly, we would appreciate it. If you're leaving. If you're not, you don't have to leave. Okay, let me repeat what I just said. This is a resolution 2018-48 to adopt an Envision Franklin Plan Amendment for properties located at and near 1777 New Highway 96 West, the Jewel property, to change the design concept from mixed residential to neighborhood mixed use. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendment request is for the properties located at the southeast corner of Highway 96 West and the future McHatcher Parkway intersection. The properties encompass 60.2 acres and border the eastern side of the West Haven development. The properties are part of the West Haven PUD and therefore zoned specific development, but do not currently have entitlements or an approved plan. Envision Franklin designates this parcel as mixed residential. The mixed residential design concept allows for big houses, duplexes, single-family, and townhomes. The applicant is requesting a neighborhood mixed-use design concept. This would allow the introduction of commercial uses onto the property. Land uses such as local commercial, professional, and transitional office, institutional, townhomes, multifamily residential are the primary uses that could be allowed, which differ from the existing mixed residential design concept. With the planned connection point and near-term construction of McHatcher on the western side of the property, the request to a more intensive use at this corner is supported. Locating the non-residential uses at a highly traveled and visible corner seems appropriate for the site, transitioning to single-family residential near the adjacent residential neighborhoods. There is a project consideration from the engineering department, and staff recommends approval.
All right, thank you. All right, so item 12, we will open up for public hearing. If you're here to speak on this item, if you'll come forward and tell us your name, where you live, and give us 2 minutes or less, please.
My name is Martha Rudman, 1428 Primrose Lane in the Carlisle subdivision. I did a little survey on my own. We went to the spring meeting, a neighborhood meeting where they presented this format. And I got in my car from the light at Boyd Mill, where Boyd Mill and Carlisle intersect, 3/10 of a mile to the east, is the Reed Hill Shopping Center. There's Walgreens, there's a gas station, there's a couple of restaurants, there's doctors, dentists in this complex. If you go 7/10 of a mile to the west, you're in West Haven, which is a work in progress. There's doctors, dentists, supermarket, hairdressing salons, florists, restaurants, on. And I don't understand why this zoning would have to be changed for more shops. The traffic along 96 has increased so much in the past few years. Not only Boyd Mill has been affected by the traffic, Carlisle, Del Rio. You come to those intersections and there's heavy traffic, especially in the morning and the evening. and I object to the, having it changed. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Stanley Jones. I live at 3240 Boyd Mill Avenue there in Franklin. And my concern is, and I can remember back when they first put Franklin Green in, Willow Springs, and different places in, different subdivisions, that city water and city sewer was not even available for us between Franklin Green entrance and Highway 96 for a long time. It is available now, and I'm glad that it is. But what I want to say is traffic out there is just out of sight. Early in the mornings, you can't get in and out of the place hardly. But all I'm asking you to do is to look at, while this development is going on, I realize that Franklin's getting bigger, busier, more populated, and you all have a big challenge. There's no doubt about that. But right across the street from me, there's an old road bed. I don't know who actually owns that, whether it's the county or the city now, between Franklin Green and my driveway. At least look into opening up Boyd Mill Avenue with a shoulder of a road, because you can't hardly pull out of your driveway in the morning without your car already out into the street nearly. And it's so much traffic that at least put some, sidewalks for people that walk out there all the time. I watch that on Saturday mornings especially. People trying to exercise and cars pass them on the hillside. It's just really dangerous. But at least check into that property across the street, which it may be green area for Franklin Green, I don't know. But see if you could put some sidewalks or bike lanes or something there, and a little bit wider shoulder so we can pull in and out safely. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Pat Williams. I've lived in Franklin for 42 years. I live at 3260 Boyd Mill Avenue, and I'm like to reiterate his concerns. As originally presented, there was one new entry to Boyd Mill Avenue from the Jewel property development. Now with the latest addition, there are two. Boyd Mill Avenue is presently a diversion from Mac Hatcher, which was supposed to solve all the problems. I would like to invite anybody on the commission to my house to drive down that road. I don't know if the people that make these plans for the map ever visit the site, but I'd like to invite you to my house for several hours of observation of Boyd Mill Avenue. I flew F-4 Phantom jets into Vietnam, and going to pick up my mail and pulling out my driveway is much more dangerous. This adding two new entries to Boyd Mill Avenue is criminal. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Richard Clark. I live at 1611 Cooper Creek Lane in Carlisle. In April, I purchased the property at 3270 Boyd Mill Avenue. And our plan is to build on that property, which is considered a critical lot. It's a lot that has a lot of restrictions on it right now, and I stringently oppose the plan to develop the property directly across from the 6 acres I purchased in April. The Commission adopted the City Land Use Plan Envision Franklin by Resolution 2016-91 on June 22. To preserve Envision Franklin as the city's collective vision for development, Envision Franklin creates safeguards to give citizens ample opportunity to consider proposed changes. Envision Franklin at page 108 provides mandatory requirements before this Commission can amend the land use plan. One requirement is for the applicant to conduct a neighborhood meeting after giving notice to nearby property owners. The notice must be sent to at least property owners within 500 feet of the property at issue. At this property, At the meeting, the applicant must present information about the proposed amendment, including the proposed site design. I am a nearby property owner and have not received notice about the neighbourhood meeting concerning the revised site design that was submitted on April 13, 18. To my knowledge, no neighbourhood meeting has been held regarding this issue. I can go on and on, but I want to echo Mr. Pat Williams' concerns about the traffic. It is mind-boggling, and now we are going to add two intersections directly opposite my property when I initially thought there was a farm across the road. So I oppose this plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brad Widman. I live at 1723 Championship Boulevard in West Haven. We've owned our property since 2006, and we've lived through the saga of Mac Hatcher is going to be completed anytime soon. We have no super dog in this fight. We obviously believe development will occur. My and our main concern is the timing of this development. Throwing more high-density housing, commercial, into an area already which is intolerable to drive. I'm retired and I won't go anywhere until after 9 o'clock leaving West Haven. It is impossible to get to 65 in less than 30 minutes between 7 and 9 in the morning. At the very least, I think we should be considering not allowing this development or much more out on the west side of 96 until this mess with Mac Hatcher gets resolved, and once and for all, we have a bypass to Franklin. Otherwise, you're going to start seeing major problems with the development. And for what we keep building and building and building, and I love Southern Land, they do a great job, but it's almost 1,800 houses now, and it's getting worse. And all we're doing is piling more on the problem already. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Margaret Ford. I live 4232 Boyd Mill Avenue. And we would like to have what was promised way back on the sidewalks and lights in Boyd Mill Avenue so we can walk out there. And traffic is unbelievable. You can't get out of the drive. Sometimes I sit in my driveway 3 to 5 minutes trying to get out of it. Sometimes I almost get run over. People's got 30 miles an hour speed limit. They come up through that 50 and 60 miles an hour. And it's no reason not to get the parkway around the area before you rebuild more land. I mean, more stores and things, because all it is tying people up. You can't get out to go to work. You can't get out to go to the doctor without the middle of the day. And I oppose this development. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, I'm probably the oldest person in here. I'm 70 years old, been on board meal since 70 years. So I've seen lots of things develop. I even remember the senior.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Just for the record, I am older. I'm Sean Farrington. We live at 1345 Elliott Road, which is close to Townsend Boulevard, which is one thing I would like to address tonight. Would like to propose that the developers reconsider the part where they want to have a commercial part to this land. As I understand the PUD, they could be building homes equivalent to the West Haven community under the present. So I would like to ask them to reconsider, do they really need to do the commercial part? The other part is Townsend Boulevard is apparently planned to join Mac Hatcher, and then there's some junction there that would go across to the Jewel property, and the Townsend Boulevard has the school within about 3 blocks of there, and it would just be a nightmare. We need to block off Townsend from McHatcher and this new development, and leave West Haven more intact and not have the traffic problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Jim Dillard. I live at 8018 Kate Street over in West Haven. I've lived in Franklin for 3 years, and I commute to work in Chicago, Illinois. And so I can sympathize with those that complain about being out on Highway 96 West between 7 and 9 in the morning. It's a nightmare. I was one of the people in this room that attended the first meeting we had late last spring where we discussed this project. There were many people that had questions, ourselves included. And one of the questions I asked was, where is TDOT at this meeting? TDOT has a vested interest in this project, being that one side of the property is bordered by 96 West, the other by the McHatcher extension. I would think, and I would hope everyone in the room would want to hear their opinion about how this project is going to affect traffic flows on 96 West and McHatcher. Right now, the traffic situation, in my view, is untenable. I know there's some people from West Haven here, I recognize you. Trying to get out on 96 West in the morning is a nightmare. We don't have a light right now, and there's none planned for the very near future. I know they've looked at that, but there's no relief anytime soon. I would ask at a minimum that the board or the committee would make a motion to postpone this resolution until the completion of McHatcher. I think that's the right thing to do in this case. I do not oppose additional residential development. I do oppose the conversion of this to commercial development. I think we've got plenty of commercial right there in West Haven. We have plenty down at Downs. We don't need any more at this time. And I was told at the last meeting by the engineering firm that, quote, people were requesting commercial development on our side of West Haven. I'd like to ask, is there anyone in this room that wants commercial development out at West Haven or adjacent to West Haven? I don't. I'll go on the record right now saying I don't.
Sir,
Yeah.
would you speak to the commission,
I'm sorry.
please, not to the audience?
Yeah,
Thank you.
understand. Thank you very much. Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Jim Finn. I live at 3120 Brimstead Drive. That backs up to Boyd Mill. I've lived there since 2005. That part of Boyd Mill, in my opinion, is a country road. It's limited sight distance. There's a lot of curves in it. I can sit on my back porch and watch the traffic going back and forth, and it's really hard to believe. I don't think that this would be totally out of the question if McHatcher was finished and there was some way to dump that traffic onto McHatcher, onto 96. But if this is just going to increase traffic on Boyd Mill, I think it's a mistake, and I oppose it.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else? Before we close the public hearing, anyone else? All right, I see none, then we will close the public hearing. And is there someone representing the applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Mike Hunkler, representing the Jewell family. And we first met with the Jewells when they realized that it looks like McHatcher will actually be, I think the bid letting is in December now. So the Jewell family is very interested now that McHatcher will become a reality. We started off with just 2 parcels, the 2 to the west. They are currently zoned mixed use, neighborhood mixed use. So in one aspect, the amendment to Envision Franklin is almost a bookkeeping exercise to match up the plan with the current zoning. The Jewells decided to back up and now have the 7-acre parcel at the corner of Boyd Mill under contract. When we mentioned that to planning and engineering, They were enthusiastic about, number one, additional access into and out of this area, and access to Boyd Mill, which we did not have frontage on initially, which will allow for improvements along the frontage, at least of this 7-acre parcel. So implementing the thoroughfare plan. So the additional 7 acres, however, is zoned R1 currently. So this will allow additional access. The intent is we need Mac Hatcher to be extended before any commercial would be viable. And I also have Terry Mulvaney here if we want to get into planning questions. But I do request your support in voting yes for the amendment.
All right, thank you.
Terry Mulvaney with Gresham Smith. We recognize it's imperative that Mac Hatcher be completed for the viability of this project. We are not trying to jump the gun with that. This is a long-range plan amendment request. It is not a site plan request. Some of the details that the residents rightfully spoke about will be addressed at future development plan stage and with individual site plans. The concerns about traffic are entirely valid. TDOT, yes, there are 2 TDOT controlled frontage roads, and those things will be required by the city with traffic analysis at the development and site plan stages. We are completely in agreement that Boyd Mill needs to be improved. Staff has told us as much, and those details would be addressed with individual site plans. The one comment, we did hold a neighborhood meeting in May. I'm sorry the gentleman didn't get notified, but we did have a large meeting and present the plan. So we agree with the staff recommendation and answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move for approval.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Most definitely.
All right.
Born, raised, still live in Franklin. Until TDOT has money approved and Mac Hatcher built, I will not support this. Do you know how long Mac Hatcher, the loop around this city, has been promised to us, and it is still not done? My great-grandchildren probably won't be driving on this, okay? I will not believe it until it is done. And I think that we will be practicing malpractice if we do this. I live in this area, this is my backyard, and I'm very, very passionate about this. The things that the people in this neighborhood have talked about is so true. Del Rio Pike is about 6 inches wide, and it's curvy as can be. I'm fortunate enough not to live in West Haven. As a matter of fact, most of you guys wouldn't even live in Franklin if I'd had my way. When I was sitting on the board of mayor and aldermen, I voted against West Haven. I thought it was too much for this area. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Still think it is, because you're still not built out. But anyway, I feel that, yes, in this area, yeah, the houses and all of that, but I feel like we have enough commercial right now. And I think that we would not, in my opinion, I can't vote for the commercial, the putting commercial in this area, because quite frankly, I think we have enough. And until Mac Hatcher, now if Mac Hatcher were built, maybe we could talk about it. But until TDOT does it, because they've said it over and over and over again, you know, we've said here long enough, if we went along with the state of Tennessee said, Mac Hatcher would have been built, completely built 10, 15 years ago. So I can't support this.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I was pretty clear at the beginning. I appreciate your respect, but we need to have decorum when we're proceeding here, so please, no more outbursts. I appreciate it. Okay. Any other comments? Ms. Peterson?
I guess I do need to say that the city has been informed that Mac Hatcher will be on the plans put out for bid in the next, in the next few months. I understand,
All right, any other comments?
What's the construction time on Mac Hatcher?
3 to 4 years,
3 to
give or
4
take,
years.
whatever they run into, so.
So there've been several comments made by the applicant about meetings, about concept meetings, meetings with the public. Has the planning commission seen or heard anything about what's being proposed for this corner?
There was a neighborhood meeting held.
Okay.
I attended.
Are there, and there are gonna be they're proposing 2 connections to Boyd Mill and another connection, to the frontage road of Mack Hatcher, or what?
Yeah, there's a lot to unravel as far as the traffic goes here. I think that's been clearly stated, and at this point, there's no development plan associated with this property. Once that occurs, once that's brought to the planning commission and board, traffic impact analysis will be required as well, which will be vetted by city staff and also TDOT. So, answering any questions on access tonight, there is no givens with this concept plan you see here today. And there will be improvements, certainly with this much density in this part of the city as well.
Because Boyd Mill is kind of a convoluted wiggle, and
Boyd Mill does need improving.
so the concept that the thought would be that Boyd Mill would be improved back through the point at which connections to this development would
Without looking at the actual numbers, but
Yeah.
seeing that there is a lot of density here, I would foresee improvements at the section of Boyd Mill along the frontage, certainly.
Because I think that's an important part of this, because just looking at this, and all I see is just the map,
Mhm.
that map. And it looks like an attempt to squeeze a bunch of stuff in a real, kind of a convoluted little corner of and I was here on the board when West Haven first came through too, and I've kind of rued the day that we've waited decades for Mack Hatcher to ever be built, and I think it's had an impact on the entire city. It certainly impacts downtown when everybody has to funnel through First Avenue and Bridge Street to try to get home in the afternoon. It's just it's a mess. And so I've expressed concern in the past that additional development of this nature in this area without Mack Hatcher, without the ribbon cutting on Mack Hatcher is just premature, and so that's the kind of concern I have. It's a big ask, given that we're still working on promises, I guess.
One other question, how many more houses before West Haven's built out?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not interactive.
I do not have that
I saw,
information.
I read an
in
article
hand.
today, approximately 3,000 homes will be built when it's totaled out.
My God.
Ms. Peterson?
I'd like to hear some more about that, but my comment is, whenever we were talking about the West Haven the Mack Hatcher project, we are really just talking about the northern part of this, the northwest. We're not talking about getting down across 96, as I understand it. Do you have any further information?
There is a
about that?
section, it does extend a little bit further south
Okay.
past 96, but it is a dead end at this point. It's not to be extended in the southwest quadrant all the way around. Come in.
So that would just get us to 96 and a little bit beyond.
A little bit beyond.
Question.
Go ahead,
Is
please.
there not a benefit then to have this access to Mack Hatcher in the future on these corner parcels that way?
I will say that.
Well, let me ask this, Jim, too. Looking at that map, is it necessary to have that many points of entry? Why do you even need to impact Boyd Mill when you've got 96 entrance and Mack Hatcher entrance?
Well, unfortunately, with the proximity of the 96 Mack Hatcher intersection, which has substantial traffic and will have substantial traffic once Mack Hatcher is connected, the points of access are ultimately too close with just the Jewel property there. So based on what TDOT will say and what we have in our street specs is we've got to get a certain distance off, and connecting over to Boyd Mill with improvements to Boyd Mill, there is some benefit there.
And that project will probably support it and pay for those improvements on Boyd Mill, sidewalks and turning lanes and all the.
That'll all come out in the traffic study, I'm sure.
Eventually.
Lisa?
She was next.
Yeah, I would just also like to say, I think this is premature to change Envision Franklin at this point. I live on Old Hillsborough Road, and I see this traffic, and I try to refrain from shopping at Kroger in West Haven, because trying to turn left out of there is just taking your life into your own hands. The traffic, the traffic is so bad, and to add more commercial and more, people coming and going through there, I just think it's premature without Mac Hatcher being finished, and at that time, then we can look at it, but I just think there's no reason to do it now.
All right. Alma, did you have something?
I was gonna ask about the mixed residential. If someone brought a plan today and it was mixed residential, how many they could build townhomes? How many units would they be able to build?
Well, it kind of depends. So the design concept would allow for it, and it would depend if they were going through a rezoning or a development plan as a part of that. Then they could ask for whatever that density might be.
Okay.
Without a change, without us making a change, what could they do?
Without making an Envision
Yes, without a
Franklin
change.
Yeah, because
amendment. That's correct.
that's in the Envision Franklin, so I
It
was
is
wondering
in-
what kind of impact that would have, because they could come next month and say, I want to bring a plan, and they have a large amount of townhomes or big houses or something like that, so that opportunity would still be there as well, right?
Yeah, that is a design concept.
That's what we're saying.
This is the part of West
She's
Haven
asking,
though, right?
without a change,
Right.
what's
It-
permitted?
It's already there.
It would be permitted land uses or supported by Envision Franklin, but any development that has attached residential, anything like that, would be required to go through the PUD
Still
development
PUD
plan
process.
process and get entitled through the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. So it would still require extensive traffic studies
Right.
and look at the density and intensity for making sure it's appropriate through
Right.
that process.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
So just to clarify, this property has no entitlement existing with
Oh,
it right
wait.
now.
Isn't this a part of the West Haven plat?
So
I believe it is.
this was actually.
Yes, it is.
It was shown as part of the original West Haven development plan, and it's within the boundaries of the PUD. But it has not had any
Exactly.
entitlements
No,
for
exactly.
actual building on this property. So regardless, it would have to come through the PUD process to get its entitlements. Now, of course, staff would recommend that some entitlements be granted through that process by all means, but the level and intensity would have to be studied further with
Right.
any plan approval.
All right. Any other comments? Okay, once again, if you're for the motion was to approve the proposed amendment. If you're for that, we'll start with raising your hands for the motion. Okay, 3, 4. Those against? 5 against. Motion fails. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll make your way out, please. We still have more business to attend to. I appreciate it. All right, we're moving on to item number 13. This is a resolution 2018-68 to adopt an Envision Plan Amendment, Envision Franklin Plan Amendment for the property located on Lewisburg Pike West of Stream Valley, known as MAP 117, Parcel 12, to change the design concept from single-family residential to conservation subdivision. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject property is located northwest of the Stream Valley neighborhood entrance off Lewisburg Pike and designated as single-family residential on the Envision Franklin Design Concepts map. The 33.5 acre parcel is vacant and wooded and contains the 500-foot hillside and hillcrest buffer on the northern part of the site and a stream along the southern boundary. The properties directly to the south have been designated as conservation subdivision, largely due to the rural character as well as the presence of undevelopable conservation areas. The plan amendment request is part of a larger master plan proposal. The applicant submitted an annexation request on September 6, 2018 for this property as well as 9 other nearby parcels along the Lewisburg Pike corridor. The request to conservation subdivision supports the applicant's desire to create a cohesive master plan and construct additional units on this parcel, including the potential of duplexes and big houses, while preserving vast areas of steep slopes to the south. The guiding principles set forth in Envision Franklin support the applicant's request to provide a variety of housing options, to preserve large areas of open space, and use a master planned approach. The staff recommends approval of Resolution 2018-68.
All right, thank you. I will open the public hearing for this comment, for this item. If you want to comment, please come forward.
I'm Chip Throckmorton. I'm an attorney, and I represent a portion of the Hendrickson family. A portion of the Hendrickson family is here and is the proponent for this. And if I may, can I point out the parcels
Please.
that I'm representing? Carrera Properties has this 5.95 acre parcel here and then 30-something acres right here. Originally, these two parcels, and there's an easement that runs along this part of the subject property that's up for y'all's approval tonight. Originally, we were approached about participating in this project. Since then, they've changed their minds, and I don't think they're interested in dealing with us. That was the message I got, at least. So anyhow, we had been presented with the contract, but then it was revoked. So anyhow, we're here only out of the concern of what does the sort of the magical spell of Envision Franklin cast over our easement? Are we going to be landlocked, or do we still have the easement? Does the Envision plan in any way affect the easement that allows ingress and egress from this piece to the landlocked piece? That would be my only question. And if you can answer that, or there could be some reassurance by either the commission or by the proponents, that will put me at the biscuits at the Chop House before they close.
Awesome. Please, go ahead. Biscuits are waiting.
Yes.
That's right. Sounds good. This is just a land use amendment, so there's no change in the property or any easements that encumber any of the properties at this time. So there's no change to the easement with this, whether it's approved or disapproved tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Please come forward again.
I certainly appreciate the staff pointing that out, but seeing as how I am a lawyer, I would feel much better if I heard an affirmative representation to the Planning Commission from the proponent that that was as well the case. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, anyone else before we close the public hearing? All right, public hearing is closed. Is there someone here to represent the applicant?
Hello, my name is Greg Gamble. I'm representing the applicant tonight, and I'll address the question at hand first, if that's all right with the commission. The City of Franklin zoning ordinance requires that public right-of-way, public streets be extended to really all property lines, north, south, east, west. We do plan to have public right-of-way connections proposed through the development to the adjacent property lines, so more than just an easement. However, if it's an easement between two property owners, you have to have the consent of both property owners to remove that easement. Tonight, we're not discussing, debating, removing easements, replatting the property, revoking easements. We're happy to work with our neighbors as we develop a master plan, develop points of connection for future roadways, and happy to address that with the attorney and his clients.
Okay.
Also tonight, I have a handout, just to be clear, as was mentioned earlier, this property really is a part of a bigger picture. And I've got a couple exhibits I want to hand out that were really a part of the slide for the neighborhood meeting. And I'd like to share those with you as well. And unfortunately, they're not really in the order that I wanted. They're only 2 pages, but if you'll start with the one at the back, makes it a little bit easier to understand. And staff, this is just an aerial photograph that shows the total properties included.
But you have a copy for us.
There should be 4 extras, I believe. So you'll see that there's a bold white line on both sides, east and west of Lewisburg Pike, in what I handed out to you on the second page. There are 2 properties that are on the north side and the south side of the entrance of Stream Valley. And then on the western side of Lewisburg Pike, this area here is a total of about 375 to 380 acres in total. You'll see that a big portion of the property has a sizable area of hilltop preservation on it. So that gives you some idea about the terrain, that there's some sloping Tennessee terrain through here. The property that we're talking about tonight and asking for the land use plan amendment on is on the very north, just on the west side of Lewisburg Pike. So that property is currently identified as single family, whereas everything on the side that's included in the subdivision is in conservation subdivision below that. So that would be the only one on the west side that would be in the single family policy. Now, if you look back here on the front page of what I sent over to you, you'll see Lewisburg Pike running north-south of the black lines. The blue line is the stream that cuts across the southern boundary of the property that we're asking for the conservation subdivision on. So what we have is we've got a valley here. And on one side of the valley, the policy is for single family. On the other side of the valley, the policy is for conservation subdivision. What we're asking is that both sides of the valley be considered for conservation subdivision so that you can have like policies across the street from each other, more or less, so that you have like policies that are on either side of the valley from the stream. You'll see that north of this property line, there's additional hillside protection. And I've shown that on page 2 again. The big gold area there to the north, all of that is hillside protection area. So it still makes sense for the properties going north of this property that you're looking at tonight to stay single family. As a matter of fact, you'll see just north of Stream Valley's entrance, there's a piece of property that's included in our master plan coming to you in the future that currently has a single family policy on it. We're going to leave that policy single family. We believe that does make sense. But south of Stream Valley, we're asking for that to be a conservation subdivision. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and I hope that was helpful.
All right, then I will entertain a motion.
Move for approval. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Hands?
I don't want hands.
He's got a hand.
Jimmy wanted to see hands.
Item number 14, Resolution 2018-70, a resolution to adopt and envision Franklin Plan Amendment for the city-owned property at 403 and 405 Fifth Avenue North, known as the Hill property, to change the design concept from recreation to mixed residential.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Please.
I want to disclose, after consulting with the city attorney, I am on the board with the Community Housing Partnership, who could possibly be a partner in this plan in the future. However, I will receive no benefit from doing this, so I intend to be in the discussion and voting on this.
All right, thank you. Duly noted.
Thank you.
All right, staff?
This resolution is for city-owned property at 403 and 405 Fifth Avenue North, known as the Hill property. This is directly across the street from Bicentennial Park. Several nonprofits for housing approached the city to develop the site for affordable and workforce housing. The city hosted a neighborhood meeting in February where 3 design scenarios were presented and paper surveys were given out. On the same day, an online survey was distributed, and the neighborhood meeting resulted in 101 people in attendance, and 80 paper survey responses were received back, and the online survey resulted in over 1,500 survey responses. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen voted on June 12th to initiate an Envision Franklin plan amendment for the city-owned Hill property to revise the design concept from recreation to mixed residential. This would include a mix of single-family homes, townhomes, big houses, and civic and institutional uses. There is a special consideration due to the lower portion of the site being located in the floodplain. It is recommended that there be a special consideration for secondary access outside of the floodplain for public safety reasons. Recommendation is approval.
All right, thank you. I will consider the public hearing open. Anybody in the audience who wants to speak to this item, if you'll come forward.
I'm Dana McClendon. I live at 400 Cannonade Circle. Obviously, I serve on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. This particular property is in the ward that I represent, and I've advocated strongly for this amendment. I hope you will join the Board of Mayor and Aldermen in supporting this cause.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Brant Bousquet, live at 109A Battlefield Drive in Franklin, and I'm the Executive Director of Hard Bargain Association. And the Hard Bargain Association, Community Housing Partnership, the Franklin Housing Authority, and Habitat for Humanity have been working on this for the last several years. And in recent time, Franktown Open Hearts has requested being able to put some facility on this property as well. And I just want to say that we are in agreement and we would like this to go forward. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, I see none. The public hearing is closed. Is there someone representing the applicant? Is that us?
That's us.
Okay. Welcome us. All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Michael?
Question for staff. It's my understanding that if this being city-owned property, it has to be auctioned off. Is that not correct?
If we declare it surplus, we have to, would have to go for bid, but I don't understand that we're gonna sell it.
So it's going to remain city-owned property?
That's how I understand it.
Those decisions have yet to be considered by the board. That's not even been up for discussion yet, so.
I mean, here we are talking about building single-family units, and you think you'd make a decision on if you wanted the property or not before you did that?
I think this is more of a vision now, right? This is more, this is an Envision Franklin. It's our vision for the property.
Right. It's really setting, this is the first step that would be necessary to even look at what the next steps might be to do with the property. So really, it would kind of be jumping ahead in the process to decide what to do with the property if it didn't line up with what's Envision Franklin.
This is our Envision Franklin part of it.
Yeah. Mr.
All
Chairman.
right. Yes, ma'am.
There's also the consideration that part of this is owned by the water department.
Right.
So it's not technically the city of Franklin. The water and sewer are funds that stand on their own, and they own their own property, yes.
And if I recall, the building of the 84 Lumber property, they valued this Hill property at $1 million to recoup that money when it was sold to help pay for what happened at 84 Lumber in their new complex.
Because that was going to have, you're
So
right.
this is just
That's
really
a very
Envision.
good point. Very good point.
This is to get the process started.
That's all it is. No decisions.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
All right, the ayes have it. All right, item number 15, consideration ordinance 2018-46, an ordinance to amend the Franklin Municipal Code Appendix A, comprehensive fees and penalties, Chapter 14 related to zoning and land use application fees for the planning review process. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a lot of technical information provided along with this item, so I'm just briefly going to hit a few of the highlights, and then if you have any questions, by all means, I'm happy to take those. The last time we updated planning review fees comprehensively was in 2010, so it's been about 8 years. Since that time, the number, frequency, and complexity of planning submittals has pretty drastically risen. The proposed fees that are on the resolution tonight really result in increases of a few $100s for each plan submittal type. And there's also a new fee proposed for annexation and plan of services, one combined fee for that. Currently, that does take a lot of our staff time. We're spending, as the annexation process has gotten more detailed for us and dealing with some of the state law issues as well as non-contiguous annexations, we are pouring a lot of time into that. So we have proposed that additional fee. There are a couple different exhibits that have been attached to this item in Legistar for you. One exhibit that's been provided shows where our fees fall in comparison to other peer cities. This proposed increase would put our fees around the average of all those cities combined, just barely higher than the average. Another exhibit we have attached shows the cost of a plan review for the city. Factors such as the time that staff spends to review any given plan, the number of staff involved in our departmental review team that are all reviewing plans, and then the staff wages are reflected in this exhibit. If you open that exhibit, I believe it's Exhibit 3, you can see that the cost to review a plan has increased from about $4,000 in 2010 to a little over $7,000 in 2018. So while the proposed fees would not cover the full cost of reviews, it would leave less for the city to subsidize. So for that reason, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
All right, thank you. Anyone in the audience that's still left would like to speak to this, please come forward. Anybody passionate about fees? All right, I see none, then we'll entertain a motion. Okay, that's a proper motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Come on. Help.
All right, motion fails for lack of a second. Is there a motion to replace that motion that didn't pass?
Motion to defer.
Motion to defer is a proper motion as well. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. There is a proper second. Any discussion? All right.
Do we need a time limit?
I'm sorry?
Need a time limit on the deferral?
Timeline, okay.
Next meeting's in
30 days.
End of the year.
2020.
End of the year.
December
Okay.
meeting?
December 31st.
December
December
31st, okay, there is, the motion to defer is to December 31st, 2018. Who seconded that? Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Then we have a new
Yeah.
updated motion. Is there any discussion on this motion? Everybody understand what they're voting on? Okay, all in favor of
I
deferral?
have a quick question.
Yes.
Does it need to defer to a specific planning commission meeting, or can it just defer to the end of the year?
Which
It
one's
would
that
be-
for January?
So that would push it to January
Yeah,
planning
push it
commission
to
meeting.
It pushes to the
January.
January planning commission
That's
meeting is what it does.
Okay,
Yes,
Either way it would.
yes.
all right.
Okay. Again, any other discussions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, motion passes. Any other news or actions to take? No? All right, then do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Or my adjournment motion lady is always here. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Ooh.